There's something almost paradoxical about avoidance. They push away the very closeness they crave. They resist intimacy while secretly longing for it. And yet there is one kind of person who captures their full attention, who lingers in their mind long after everyone else has faded into the background. And if you've ever wondered why they seem to detach from most people so easily, but hold on to certain ones with a kind of quiet obsession, then what I'm about to share with you will change how you see everything. Think about it. Most people believe that avoidants don't care, that they're too cold, too disconnected, too unavailable to become obsessed with anyone. But that isn't true. They feel deeply, sometimes even more deeply than they want to admit, and it terrifies them. So when they stumble across someone who pulls at them in ways they can't control, someone who strikes a nerve in their carefully constructed armor, they don't just forget, they replay, they revisit, they linger. Have you ever noticed that avoidants don't obsess over the people who chase them, over the ones who beg, plead, or cling? No, that doesn't ignite anything in them. That simply confirms their fears, feeds their narrative that closeness means suffocation. But there is a different kind of person who slips past their defenses. It's the person who embodies both presence and independence. The person who sees them, not the mask, not the avoidance, but the trembling humanity underneath, and yet refuses to collapse into their push and pull. That kind of person becomes unforgettable. Imagine an avoidant walking away, thinking they're done, thinking they've secured their freedom. Weeks go by, maybe months. But then in the quiet of the night, when no one is watching, they wonder why they can't shake the image of someone who held their gaze without flinching, who didn't need them to be more than they could give, but also didn't settle for crumbs. That kind of steady energy, that balance of openness and self-possession, it doesn't leave their psyche easily. It haunts them. And here's the irony. The very person they try to test, to push away, to confuse with mixed signals, is the one they end up replaying in their mind over and over, not because that person gave them everything, but because that person didn't lose themselves in the process. And that contrast, it creates a gravitational pull they don't know how to break. So the question is, why this person? Why are avoidants obsessed with the one who holds their ground? And what does it mean for you if you've been that person, or if you want to become that person? Avoidants are magnetized to a paradox, strength wrapped in softness. On the surface, it looks contradictory. How can someone be both strong and soft at the same time? But to the avoidant nervous system, that combination is like a rare frequency they can't tune out. See, most of the people they encounter fall into one of two categories. Either they collapse under the pressure of the avoidance distance, scrambling to prove themselves worthy, or they mirror the avoidance with cold detachment, trying to beat them at their own game. Neither of those stirs obsession. One feels smothering, the other feels dismissive. Both reinforce the avoidance fears. But strength with softness is different. It's when someone can say without words, I see you, I understand your fear, and I will not chase you, nor will I abandon myself to fit inside your walls. That is electrifying for the avoidant because it disrupts the script they've rehearsed their whole lives. Imagine the avoidant sends a cold text, distant, short. Most people would either flood them with more words trying to close the gap or retreat and shut down in retaliation. But the person who embodies strength and softness doesn't do either. They might respond warmly, but with no attachment to outcome. They don't force, they don't beg, they don't mirror the avoidance. Instead, their grounded presence communicates, I'm here, but I don't need to grip you to prove my worth. This unsettles the avoidance defenses. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't bend to the usual game. Their obsession grows not from the words exchanged, but from the energy that feels both safe and unshakable. It's like the avoidant's deepest wound, the terror of engulfment and the terror of abandonment, suddenly collides with someone who neither engulfs nor abandons. That's unforgettable. And this is where obsession takes root. Because for the avoidant, strength feels threatening. Softness feels dangerous. But when both are present in harmony, it awakens a longing they cannot suppress. It makes them wonder, what is it about this person that I can't erase? Why do they linger in my mind long after I've shut the door? The obsession isn't about drama. It's not about chaos. It's about the rare discovery of someone who can love without losing themselves. That's the imprint the avoidant keeps coming back to. And if you've ever been that person, the one who didn't collapse into chasing or retaliation, you probably didn't even realize the mark you left behind. Because while they may have walked away, your steadiness travels with them, and it keeps them circling back, even if only in their private thoughts. But strength and softness alone aren't set the full story. There steps another layer to why avoidants become fixated. It steps about timing. It steps about the moment when they realize they can control the narrative anymore. Timing is everything with an avoidant. And here's the truth that most people miss. Avoidants don't become obsessed when they're in control. They become obsessed when they realize control has slipped through their fingers. Their nervous system thrives on distance, on the illusion that they can manage how much closeness gets in. But when the moment comes that they can't script your responses, when they can't predict your behavior, when they feel the scarcity of your presence, they begin to obsess. Think about it. If you've ever tried to prove yourself to an avoidant, pouring out reassurance, proving your devotion, they may have tolerated it, but it didn't ignite them. It actually made you too predictable, too available. But when you shift, when you stop orbiting around their approval, when your energy becomes less accessible, something clicks inside them. Suddenly, you're not on the shelf they thought they could reach for whenever they wanted. You become rare, and scarcity, for an avoidant, is intoxicating. This is why so many people are shocked when, after they finally walk away, or even just emotionally release the need to chase, the avoidant resurfaces. Not because they've suddenly changed overnight, but because your timing disrupted their control. You became less of a guarantee, and it's the guarantee that kills obsession for them. Picture it. An avoidant thinks they have you figured out. They pull away, certain you'll still be there, but instead of clinging, you center yourself. You live your life. You don't collapse into silence, nor do you flood them with words. Your energy shifts without warning, and they feel it. That's when they start scrolling back through old photos, replaying conversations, remembering your laugh. That's when their mind begins to circle around you like a song they can't stop humming. Obsession for the avoidant isn't about love stories in the traditional sense. It's about power dynamics, about moments when their old strategies fail to contain you. And when their strategies fail, they don't just forget, they fixate, they analyze, they wonder if they miscalculated. And the irony is, it's often when you've already moved into your own life, into your own power, that they become most consumed. So if you've ever felt like you had to prove yourself to matter to them, hear this. Your absence, your detachment from their control speaks louder than any proof ever could. Timing matters because it flips the script. It reminds them you're not theirs to predict. And unpredictability, paired with the memory of your softness and strength, is what hooks their mind long after you've walked away. If this is landing for you, subscribe. We're just getting started. Because what comes next will shatter another illusion. The belief that avoidants are obsessed with who you are. The truth is, they separate obsessed with what you awaken in them, a mirror they can escape. Here's the part that may sting a little, but it's also where the deepest clarity begins. Avoidants are not obsessed with you in the way you think. They're obsessed with the reflection of themselves that comes alive in your presence. This is crucial to understand because without it, you'll mistake their pull for a kind of love that it isn't. See, avoidants live with an inner contradiction. They want closeness, but they fear it. They crave connection, but they equate intimacy with danger. So when they meet someone who awakens their softer side, someone who invites their buried tenderness to the surface, they are both terrified and fascinated. You become the mirror that shows them a version of themselves they don't normally access. And that version feels intoxicating. Imagine the avoidant who's used to feeling numb, detached, in control. Then they encounter you, and suddenly they're laughing in a way they haven't in years. Suddenly they feel safe enough to reveal fragments of their inner world. They surprise themselves with how much they share or how much they want to share. That's the moment obsession takes root. Not because they're fully obsessed with you, but because they're obsessed with the experience of themselves that you unlock. And this is why they can't just forget. You showed them a part of themselves they thought was lost. That's why they keep circling back, even if it's from a distance. Even if they never say it out loud, they replay the feelings, not just the memories. They want that glimpse of themselves, again, the one that feels human, alive, and whole. But here's the danger. If you confuse their obsession with true commitment, you'll misread their capacity, because obsession for them doesn't automatically translate into readiness. It translates into longing, into a gnawing awareness that they can't suppress the way you made them feel. But longing without healing still collapses under fear. So, when you sense their obsession, when they resurface or drop breadcrumbs, ask yourself, are they pulled toward me or toward the reflection of themselves I once gave them? Because knowing the difference is how you stop being consumed by their cycle and instead step into your own clarity. And that sets the bridge to the next truth. The fact that obsession and avoidance, the sets just live in longing. It lives in resistance. The more they fight it, the stronger it grows. Their obsession is fed not by ease, but by tension. Here's the paradox. No one tells you an avoidance obsession doesn't thrive in closeness. It thrives in resistance. The harder they try to push away the feelings you stirred in them, the deeper those feelings carve themselves into their psyche. Avoidants live in a cycle of self-protection. They tell themselves, I don't need this. I'm fine alone. I can shut this down. And for a while they succeed. They bury the thoughts, distract themselves, retreat into work or solitude. But obsession doesn't dissolve under pressure, it multiplies. Because every time they resist the pull toward you, they create more tension inside themselves. And tension is the soil in which obsession grows. This is why avoidants often look calm on the outside while secretly being consumed on the inside. They won't tell you. They'll act distant, even cold. But when they're alone at night, when the noise fades, their mind turns back to the very thing they swore they didn't want. That's when the looping starts, the constant replaying of moments, the questions they can't silence. Why can't I just let this go? Why does she linger in my mind? It's not comfort that fuels obsession for an avoidant. It's the unresolved conflict within them, the clash between their desire and their defense mechanisms. You become the embodiment of that inner battle. And the more they try to suppress it, the more you take root in their subconscious. This is why so many people misinterpret silence from an avoidant as indifference. In reality, silence is often where obsession is loudest. They're not telling you how much they think about you, because admitting it would mean surrendering control. But make no mistake, their restraint doesn't erase the obsession. It intensifies it. And here's where your power lies. You don't have to force obsession. It builds naturally in the gap between what they feel and what they allow themselves to act on. Your job is not to close that gap for them. It's to stay grounded in your own life while they wrestle with the storm they created. Send this to someone who's been stuck in that cycle for far too long, someone who's confused silence for disinterest, when in reality, obsession often hides in the quiet. Because next, we are going to peel back another layer. Why avoidants circle back not when you start chasing them, but when you have finally stopped, and that shift changes everything. Avoidants don't come back when you're chasing them. They come back when you've stopped. And this isn't some cliche dating tactic, it's psychology. When you're pursuing, explaining, or proving your worth, the avoidant feels safe in their distance. They know exactly where you are, waiting, orbiting, available. There's no risk of loss. And because obsession feeds on tension and scarcity, they feel none of it when you're right there, holding the door wide open. But when you stop pouring your energy into decoding them, when you stop trying to fix the disconnection, when you stop tethering yourself to the hope that they'll change, that's when everything inside them begins to shift. Because suddenly, the script they've relied on no longer works. Think about it. Avoidants pull away to regain control. But if you don't chase, they don't regain control. Instead, they feel the echo of your absence. They start to wonder, where did she go? Why isn't she fighting for me? Did I misjudge her devotion? That uncertainty unsettles them, and it's in that uncertainty that obsession is reignited. This is why you'll often hear stories of avoidance resurfacing months, even years later. Not because they suddenly woke up healed, but because the person they thought would always be there finally stopped waiting. And the shock of that loss becomes unforgettable. Here's the irony. Detachment is not about punishing them. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about stepping out of the exhausting loop and grounding back into your own wholeness. But the moment you do, the avoidant feels the difference. They don't just notice your absence. They feel the loss of the reflection you once gave them. And that's when they circle back, not out of pure love, but out of a gnawing obsession with what they can't quite replace. So if you've ever wondered why they disappear when you try harder and reappear when you've let go, this is why. It's not random. It's the natural rhythm of their psychology. And this sets us up for the final truth. The sixth shift, the one most people miss, that avoidant obsession doesn't always end in return. Sometimes it lingers in silence, becoming the quiet regret that follows them for years. Avoidant obsession doesn't always end with them knocking on your door. Sometimes it ends in silence, in regret, in the lifelong echo of what they couldn't bring themselves to hold on to. This is the part that's hardest to see when you're in the thick of it, because you're waiting for action. You're waiting for them to come back, to choose you, to say the words you've longed to hear. But here's the truth, for many avoidants, the obsession never disappears. It just goes underground. It becomes a quiet ache, a shadow that follows them for years. They may never tell you, they may never reach out, but you'll live in their mind as the what if, the one they replay in moments of stillness. You'll be the person they remember when they see a place you once walked together, when a song comes on the radio, when they catch the scent of something familiar. That's the nature of avoidant regret. It's rarely expressed, but it's deeply felt. And here's the paradox. By the time they're consumed by that regret, by the time the obsession has fully bloomed, it's often too late, because the person they lost, you, has already grown beyond the dynamic. You've learned to stop making your life about their capacity. You've stepped into your own power, your own wholeness, and that's when the roles shift. They're left holding the memory while you're holding your future. So understand this, an avoidance obsession is not proof of your worth. You never needed proof. It's proof of the cost of their fear. It's proof that your presence was unforgettable. And whether they return or stay silent, that obsession is theirs to carry, not yours to wait for. And maybe that's the most empowering shift of all. Because once you see that their obsession is not your responsibility, you're free. Free to stop circling in their storm. Free to claim the kind of love that doesn't just obsess in silence, but shows up fully, openly, courageously. If this resonated, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's been stuck waiting for answers. Someone who needs to know that being unforgettable to an avoidant is not the same as being chosen. And remember, your power isn't in what they feel about you. Your power is in what you choose to believe about yourself.